Hey guys, what's up? It's Joe Rady from Rady's Rides. I'm here at the Mecum Auto Auction in Kissimmee, Florida, starting off the new year just right with an amazing event. And what I have for you is probably one of the rarest of C4 Corvettes that you could get your hands on. This is a 1996 Corvette Grand Sport convertible. But before we get into this blue with white racing stripes Corvette, let's talk about what's going on here. So C4, the fourth generation, that went from 1984 all the way to 1996. So this is the final year of the C4. Now, there are some special editions in the C4 generation, but none other is as rare as this Grand Sport because they only made 1,000 of them. Now, if you're wondering, why did they do a Grand Sport? Why is it called the Grand Sport? And why is it this particular color combination? Because guess what? All 1,000 of them, including this convertible, were Admiral Blue with the white racing stripe. What's even more rare is that this convertible is just one of 190 examples. Now, when it comes to the Grand Sport, that name goes all the way back to 1963, if you could believe that. There was an embargo, a blockage of factory racing from the big three, General Motors, obviously Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, the whole Mopar organization, and Ford. But some engineers, including the true father of the Corvette, Zora Arkus Duntov, was able to get some factory racers out the back door to go up against those pesky 427 Cobras. So to honor that and commemorate the 63 Grand Sport race cars, that's where this car comes into play. Now, what's interesting is that if you look at a C7 or a C6 Corvette Grand Sport, they made as many of those particular cars as people were willing to buy. That's what makes the C4 a lot more rare. I wish it was a coupe because the coupe had a little bit fatter rear wheel and tire setup off of the ZR1 Corvette and some fender flares, but you know what? Beggars can't be choosers, and having this convertible, it's actually kind of more rare because, like I said, only 190 examples. So let's go ahead, let's find out why this is one of the most collectible Corvettes of all time. Right off the bat, the color. Admiral Blue with the white racing stripe and the two hash marks. Now, if you've ever wondered why are there two bright red hash marks on the side of the vehicle, that goes back to racing in the golden age, the 1950s, 1960s, before radio communication was really available for the driver and the pit crew. Teams that had multiple cars would have multiple stripes. So you would know exactly what car was going by down the front straightaway or coming down the pits. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we're seeing on this particular Grand Sport. So the end of the C4 generation, this was the nose change that was done during a refresh in 1991. So it went a little bit more rounded, kind of fit in with the 1990s. 1990s, a lot of rounded jelly bean style shapes, but I really like the look that they did, especially with the lower fog lamps, your turn signals, and of course for me, it's all about the flip up headlights. And what's wonderful about a C4 Corvette, they don't just pop up, and that's why I didn't say pop up. They flip up, they actually spin and rotate when you turn on your headlights, and it's just a cool little thing. And you'll see when we pop the hood how those headlights are positioned. Now, as we come across the center, of course you have that iconic name, Corvette. Here's a little Jeopardy fun fact for you. You know where they came up with the name Corvette? Is Corvette a made-up name? No, believe it or not, Corvette is the name of a small naval ship, very maneuverable naval ship, and it suits the Corvette perfect because of how maneuverable this car is. But you got the Corvette name, loving the classic on 1996. That is what we were looking at for your Corvette emblem. You got the cross flags, the Chevy bow tie with the checkered flag. That you go all the way back to 1953 is synonymous Corvette with the Corvette. And if you look at the new C8, it's got that overall same feel. Obviously they've changed over the years, but that's what we were looking at in the C4 generation. White stripe, perfectly placed all the way down. And another fun fact, as we rise up and see that very low slung hood, is that all the convertibles came specifically with a white top. We come around the bend, you're going to be looking at a unique wheel and tire setup. So this is the stock wheel and tire setup. This is exactly how it came. Gloss black 5-spoke wheel to mimic those ZR1 wheels that were put into play in 1994. Remember, the last year of the ZR1 for the C4 generation is 1995. So this was actually the performance version of your base Corvette. But I like the style of the wheel. When I was in high school and college, this was what you wanted back then. So kind of crazy how things have changed, but you can see perfect condition. Whoever's owned this has taken just awesome care and attention and detail to it to really show that originality, and that's what makes it so special. 17-inch wheel, remember, and you're looking at up front 255 on the width and a 45 series sidewall, Corvette badging on those sliding caliper brakes. No Brembos yet, no massive wheels yet. That's gonna come in the later generations. We got the hash marks. Remember, clamshell hood, opens up reverse. You got your unique Grand Sport badge. This is the only C4 that came with that badge. That's exactly how it was placed. No Corvette is original without those side vents. You go back through the years, they've changed. Some of them are functional, some are non-functional. These are non-functional, but they do look really good. And this was another part of that refresh that took place in 1990. Now, as we go down the side, color matched on the mirror caps. Here's a little tidbit of information. On convertibles, you'll notice the addition of this flat black piece of plastic that's been added to the side mirror. They actually did that specifically on convertibles in 1986 because that was the return of the convertible Corvette to kind of cut down on turbulence as you had your windows down and the top down. What's interesting, many aftermarket companies like Eckler's would produce those and people would add those just for, I guess, the unique look. But that's why on a convertible from the factory, you had that little extra piece of black plastic. You can see, like I said, white top, that's how it came on the Grand Sport. One of the main options that you don't see much is the red interior. This one doesn't have it, but that's just an option that if you see one with red interior, that one's even more rare. Now, when we look at the rear tire setup, if this was a coupe, you would have these fender flares that would have been added, and the width of the tire setup would be 315s. We don't have that on the convertible, which kind of bums me out a little bit. But if we track down a coupe, I'll definitely showcase how you'll have that little extra fender flare that's been added. Only C4 from the factory to get that. Because remember, ZR1 actually has a totally different rear end, which is wider all the way across. But looking back at the wheel and tire setup back here, still loving that great design. Simple, and like I said, just reminds me of my youth. Now, is this wider than the front? Yes. 255s up front, 285 out back, but definitely still not as wide as 315s. We work our way towards the rear. You can see that white stripe comes all the way down, and then this was your rear end of the Corvette in 1991. Now, when they did this refresh, I was a little bummed out because what they did was they mimicked what they did with the ZR1, the 1990 ZR1, when that name came back. Because remember, that wasn't the first year of the ZR1. It goes back to 1970 on the C3. In 91, for whatever reason, all Corvettes had the rounded back and sort of that rounded oval circle shape of a taillight. Still looking great. I'm gonna find a ZR1 here and I'm gonna show you how you can tell the difference between the tail end of a ZR1 compared to a standard Corvette. One way you know this isn't a ZR1, it's a convertible. They didn't make any ZR1 convertibles. But the white stripe, that is your vacuum style exhaust. I am gonna zonk that. I zonked it back in 1996 before I even had Rady's rides when I was a junior in college. But you know what? It fits the period and I'm glad that it's all original. But why don't we pop the hood and see the Lt4 that's underneath it. All right guys, we got that clamshell hood open. You can clearly see the headlights, how they are located when they are not on. When you turn on your headlights, they're gonna flip upside down and illuminate the road in front of you. One thing that kind of bums me out is that near the end of the C4 generation, they removed this plaque. There used to be a plaque that was there. I had it on my 1985 Corvette that said built in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Kind of a bummer that they got rid of that, but you know what? That's the bigger news. That's that Lt4 engine. So when we're looking at the Lt4 engine, you're looking at a 5.7 liter, 350 cubic inch V8 engine. It's 330 horsepower, 340 pound-feet of torque. You could only get it one transmission and one transmission only. That's that ZF 6-speed manual transmission, 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds, top speed 168 miles an hour, and the car weighs around 3,400 pounds. Now, I know you probably heard Lt4. First of all, the way you know this is Lt4, the bright red paint on the intake plenum, also the Grand Sport badge on your throttle body located up here, and then of course the red Corvette script. Now let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. When I say Lt4, I know you're probably saying, well, Joe, isn't the Lt4 in a ZL1 Camaro built today? Yes. But this is not obviously supercharged. This is naturally aspirated. This was the performance version compared to the LT1. If you bought a standard Corvette back in 1996, you got the LT1 V8, which was 300 horsepower. This one has the extra 30 horsepower. But why don't we go ahead? It's great to look at the originality, and that's what I love about this car. Let's get to the interior and see what it was like in 1996. All right, guys, we're inside this pristine 1996 Corvette Grand Sport. It's cool just to be able to show you what the Corvette was all about in 96. And when you see this interior, you'll realize that when you get into a new Corvette or something like C7, doesn't even have to be a C8, you'll notice how the Corvette fit, finish, and quality has just been elevated. Let's go to the door panels and see what you got. All black material. I guess the good news is easy to keep clean, lots of hard plastic all over the place, but that's how it was in the C4 generation. No door pockets, so you're gonna have to put your Twinkies in between your legs, but I would not recommend that because you don't want to get cream on this interior. It's too pristine. When you get to the dash, look at how far forward the dash is. You have your AC vents for the passenger. That's all they get. That's all they got on that side. This is your airbag. If you're wondering, is that a glove box? No, this is your airbag. And then just as it should be, even like it is on the new Corvette, everything is driver focused. So this is not infotainment. This is all where your warning lights would come on. You got all your fuel information, AC controls. This thing is a radio. I don't know if you've seen one like this lately, but it's got a CD player back in 96. That was a big thing. Dolby surround sound. The biggest thing though, the thing that I'm so happy about is this guy right here. This is that ZF 6-speed manual transmission. Throws are on the longer side, but you know what? Still nice and crisp. The clutch doesn't feel heavy, and the height of the shifter is actually perfect. This is what I'm missing in that C8 Corvette. I'm sad that it's gone, but I'm glad that it's here in this Grand Sport. You actually had your magnetic ride control that you adjusted. So no magnetic ride like you think today, but you actually could adjust the suspension. These are to adjust the seats. You do have a center console that opens up, but there's really no room to talk about it. You can't even get a Twinkie in there, maybe a credit card. And then the seats. Unique style for 1996. I do like the way it's got the Grand Sport embroidery up top. Bolstering is interesting. There's bolstering, but it's super soft, not much on the bottom. But you know what? It's not about what it looks like sometimes, it's about how it feels. And it feels pretty good actually. Coming over the business end though, I want to show you behind the wheel of this Corvette Grand Sport. All right guys, business time behind the wheel of this Corvette. I feel like I'm having a little bit of a flashback because even though I didn't have a 96, I did have a 1985 Corvette, and it was close to the overall feeling. One of the things that's the closest to my 85 Vet is still on 1996, the end of the C4. Look at how high the side sills are. Corvettes were very difficult to get in and out of, not so much today. It's a breeze. Steering wheel. 90s were interesting because of the airbag being, you know, something new and trying to work around. You could see just how large the airbag area is, and it really made steering wheels kind of look funky. And this is no exception. You do have the Corvette badge there kind of stamped in the center, but everything else is this weird rubber. And then the dash, check it out. You got a small digital display there. That's that amber setup, and then the tech going all the way up to 6,500 RPM. Everything else is analog. I love that setup. It's so easy to see, so easy to understand. And I don't know, this car fits me like a glove. It really does. Just like my 85 did back when I was 17 years old. and bought it all myself while I was still in high school, if you could believe that. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's wrap this one up. All right, guys, this is why I love coming to the Mecum Auto Auction. This is why if you have never been, you want to get down to one of these, because even if you're not going to bid on anything, it's a car show all in itself, and really just this logistical kind of craziness that's just cool to be around, and really something that you'll remember for a very long time to come. This C4 Corvette, is it the ultimate when it comes to collectability? It's definitely going to be high up there for the C4 generation. Remember, 84 all the way to 96. Great to bring the Grand Sport. I would love to park one in my garage. But if you want to keep seeing cool, rare cars like this, or events that we go to, leave a comment in the comment section. If you're new and you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile coming back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Radies Rise family. If you want to help us keep making great content just for you in the channel, click the link in the description, get yourself some Radies Rise merch. Got to give it up to the queen of the camera. She's loving Mecum. She's loving just being here and feeling the excitement. Show her some love in the comment section. And just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.